So I'm going to talk about this book here. Well, I'll talk about this Drain the Oceans a little bit. It's a National Geographic thing. It's 3 DVDs, so it's quite long. 472 minutes long. And honestly, it feels longer. I didn't enjoy it. I'd wondered what it was about, but it's about, like now, with remote sensing and stuff, they can see underground. They can detect things. Anyway, so they're looking at what's lying on the ocean floor and I guess sort of ish below, like where the sand is. And so they're trying to find sunken treasures kind of thing. So anyway, some people might be interested in this. I found it incredibly boring. Boy, the kids don't like me being outside. I should have left this on for them so they'd keep them company. Anyway, I should show you my apple tree. The blossoms look amazing. Maybe I'll remember too when I shut the camera off. But anyway, that's what I'm looking at right now. It's a beautiful apple tree. But it's funny how National Geographic, this is incredibly dry. It's so boring to watch. So what they've done is they've pumped up the suspenseful, exciting sort of music. So it basically sounds like you're watching, I don't know, Jurassic Park or something. Yeah, and it doesn't help because it's really boring. So I can't imagine anybody would want to watch this, but I have to get it back to the library because somebody put it on hold. So anyway, now I'm going to talk about the Co-op Revolution, and I'm making some treats for my dog. So this is mostly, what do you call it? Cucumber pulp. And there's some red bell pepper pulp and cilantro pulp in there. A fair amount of cilantro pulp too. But mostly it's cucumber. And a lot of the time the pups, they don't mind that. So I'm making dog treats out of this. I could make something for myself out of it. The cucumber pulp works great for making tzatziki, if you like that. Anyway, I have plenty of it. I always have plenty of it because I like drinking cucumber juice. It's easy. And it's very hydrating. It's awesome. So anyway, I'll be putting this peanut butter in, and I picked this one out because it's protein for people, and it seems like, well, it seems to fit for this. So anyway, the Co-op Revolution, Vancouver's Search for Food Alternatives by Jan DeGrasse. And the first thing I noticed about this is, I don't know if you can see it from there, but do you see how the pages are not even? And this looks beautiful, but for somebody who actually reads books, when you see this, you're like, it's going to be a pain to flip the pages. So these kind of pages are not actually meant in books for reading, really. Anybody who picks this out for their book doesn't mean it to be read, because they know, if they're a reader, they know that this is difficult to read. So my guess is, anyway, I shouldn't make a guess. This got a lot of Canadian funding, I noticed, because I write down I notice these things. These are the first things I look at. I look at the publisher, the date, and the author's background and stuff like that. So anyway, and then I'm flipping through and I notice a lot of pictures. So there are several black and white pictures of people. Page 162, for example, full page devoted to a photo of a man playing a stand-up bass and another playing an accordion. What does that have to do with this? Page 162, top photo of a couple. One is the pretty young author, while the other pops a cork on a bottle of champagne. Again, relevance? Bottom photo of bakers sitting on crates on a break. Well, there was something to do with bakers in there. So, anyway, lots of photos of people and nothing educational about it. This looks like Facebook in book format, really, is what this is. It's, anyway, page 11. Author joined co-op in 1975. She'd studied Russian literature at University of Waterloo. 22, they had a cannery. They made jam sweetened with honey. They left one pit in each apricot jam jar since it improved the flavor. And I guess one guy thought it was the prussic acid, which I guess, anyway, the Laetrile, the whatever, and I don't know how they didn't get in trouble for doing that. Nobody got poisoned apparently. Page 27, their jams didn't contain the regulation 60% soluble solids, so it couldn't legally be labeled as jam. So their motto, food for people, not for profit, so it's protein. But their prices were higher than other commercial canned fruits and jams. So, where was the money going? 29, sales for 11 months were $4,846. But with expenses, that's like, I guess the cost of the apricots maybe, or what? It was a loss of $2,791. But other expenses, mostly the salaries, which were huge, apparently, amounted to $39,094, giving them a net loss of $41,885. They had a LEAP grant from the government, which made up much of that loss and allowed them to continue to build the business. The 40, the federal funding grant paid their salaries and some expenses. 44, none of them had any education in food business. Their educations were, like, well, you know, hers was Russian literature, creative writing, social work, etc. 72. Then they went into the cheese business. 73. They bought Peace River Clover Honey. 86. 1973. The Vancouver Women's Bookstore was a feminist bookstore. And I thought that was funny to note because Portlandia. Anyway, 98. They got into instant coffee briefly. Why? 99. They added almonds, cashews, and beans. These beans came from the Ontario Bean Growers Co-op. So that, the beans sort of make sense. 101, when cases were broken, the food provided the collective lunches. I'm sure they did. 114, jazz played on tape in Uprising Breads Bakery, which made a really groovy atmosphere, I'm sure. They collected unemployment insurance while they built that business. 117, they always put their surplus profit back into the business. They didn't call it profit, they called it surplus. So, anyway. And that's, you know, in the business world, that's what new businesses do. They put all of their profits, they even put their salaries. They don't make, when people start up you have a little family business, they're not paying themselves for a long time. These guys got to pay themselves because the government paid them. 151, they sold CRS Holdings. Each of the 50 people on the payroll had paid $2,000 a share to work there, but the original share purchase was $100. Money was paid out to shareholders and recent investors. How much? She doesn't provide that information. And $125,000 was sent to CCEC Credit Union to support other cooperative projects. The Canadian Worker Co-op Federation also received $75,000. So, now I'm seeing a lot of this sort of thing, interest in this sort of thing lately, because frankly, what's happening now is I have naturally decaffeinated green tea in my teapot. What's happening right now is there's a lot of people that were into that sort of thing that are now reaching retirement age. And so there's a lot of interest in that sort of thing again. So anyway, There's a lot of things happening. I mean, if somebody doesn't come up with some good ideas fast, then basically all of the land is going to be owned by none of the people except for, well, like top 7. So, because all of the farmers are coming to retirement age too, they're wanting to have some, I don't know, cruises or whatever. They want to live a different life. Most people tend, when they retire, to go to the city near the hospitals and stuff. So, anyway, it's a lot of fun. But as you can see, even though these guys are showing us, oh, look at these alternatives we were coming up with in the 70s. And it was like, that didn't work. And it obviously wasn't going to work. It was never set up to work. It was basically, like while they were working in the bakery, they were collecting employment insurance. And really, now I don't like to use the word or the term welfare bums, but anyway. And I do think that when a person goes on employment insurance, they should be doing some sort of work while they're on it. I do believe in that. And it should be some sort of something that helps the public. So I don't know why there aren't more projects like in now there were problems with this, I had heard, but when I worked in Winnipeg, for example, they had some sort of a project where like they have a lot of elm trees that get Dutch elm disease. So what they do is in the winter they'll take them down, and there's a lot of elms along the riverbank, right? So they'll take them down in the winter, and then they can drag them out on the ice. They can get rid of them that way, so it's easier for them to deal with the elm problem. Now I don't know if that's going to what they'll do in the future, because I don't know if you'll be able to drive on the ice 20 years from now. Who knows? Anyway, but that's beside the point. What I wanted to say, I wanted to mention they had this project, I guess, where they'd hired, it was sort of like to boost employment or something for the unemployed people. And they'd hired in a bunch of people that weren't educated or anything, but they were training them on how to take down these trees. So, and then they ended up with a whole bunch of these people working within the organization, and I don't know, it made for maybe a demographic that they didn't really want. I mean, I've worked with, people don't realize, we kind of segregate ourselves. So, like a middle class kind of culture, I hadn't realized that. James told me that I was middle class, and I was like, what are you talking about? I was very, very poor. And he was like, yeah, we were really poor in Africa too. And he was explaining to me that they were middle class, even though they didn't have a lot of the things that we consider just basic necessities and living in Canada. Anyway, and it has more to do with, it's sort of an education thing, but it's more of a culture, it's more of a desire to be educated. Anyway. But yeah, you get, when you work with other groups of people, you get to realize, wow, there's a lot of differences. Not everybody is the same, and they don't have the same sort of values. And if we were on like some sort of, I don't know, trek through the mountains where a group of people might be tempted to eat some of the other group of people, I would get eaten. They would eat me. And I realized that, working with these people, not everyone actually cares about other people. A lot of people care about themselves. And anyway, I'm gonna mix this up. I'm gonna be putting this in. I've been hesitant to bring the bread home to add breadcrumbs to this. Usually what I used to do for the dog treats is just whir up some oat, and so make a oat flour to mix it up with. And I think I'm going to go back to that because I actually don't know that this is food anymore, and I worry about the dogs eating that. So I think I'm going to go back to oat flour, but I have some of this left over and I don't want to waste it, so